Welcome to episode 28 of In Touch with iOS, a podcast for sharing tips, apps, and gear for iPhone and iPad, along with related technologies that get us using iOS in a fun, productive, and meaningful way. I am your host, Dave Ginsburg, and joining me as always is Melissa Davis. How are you doing, Melissa?
I'm doing great. How are you? You're hanging in there? We're hanging in there?
Yes, we're hanging in there, keeping busy. Lots going on with at work and with play, and Mac stocks coming up, and all kinds
Lots
of stuff.
to be excited about, huh?
That's excited and a lot of work.
Yeah.
I mean, not the Mac stock part, but a lot going on. But that's okay. That's why we come here and kind of want to talk about everything there is to know about iOS and have some fun. So it's been a couple weeks, but we're glad to be back with you.
Some of the news. There's stuff going on in the news. You've got something to dish about that I want to pick your brain about, and then later on we'll dive in again to the contacts app section. And I'm just going to highlight a couple of the little more things in this episode, and we'll save them for others as we go along. But
absolutely. So there were some news stories that caught my eye I threw out there. The first one I wanted to talk about was those of you who have iPhone 6 phones, if you had your battery replaced between January and December of 2017, Apple owes you some money.
If you paid for it.
If you paid for it, of course.
Because there was a silent recall. I did actually participate in that and got it replaced, and it didn't cost anything.
So we did link this into the show notes. This is on the Mac Rumors website. They're going to provide a $50 credit to all customers who paid an out-of-warranty battery replacement for the iPhone 6 or later. Actually, it's not just the iPhone 6, I guess it says here. Between the dates of January 1st, 2017 and December 28th, 2017 that they announced. So check out that website. Get out there. If you did pay for it, get your money back because they're gonna give you a credit. The battery stock is good, so you shouldn't have any problems at all about bringing it into the store to get your battery replaced. So there should be stock no matter what model you have, and definitely go do that if you did pay for it. So, and if you didn't, and your battery is giving you trouble, go to the Apple store and get it replaced.
Yeah, because it's what, $29?
$29. You can't beat it
till December.
Yeah. So. Another story caught my eye was Google. Google actually finally released the Google News app that really works in iOS. Now, again, we linked to Mac Rumors. There's actually a video out there to give you a little short blurb about what it does. They did do a nice job of revamping it and giving it some good graphics, easy to navigate. Has a For You section where you can personalize recommendations. Each app can search different news sites and blogs, which is nice. And it does do a lot of good things. The Apple News does the Spotlight section where it'll feature curated news stories. So they've done a good thing. And as far as that goes, Google News doesn't have a similar feature, but its own unique offering is in the form of a headline section that aggregates all the news, and it's sorry, my phone's ringing. I forgot to turn it off.
That's what an iPhone sounds like when it rings.
Yes,
guys.
it does. And we want to edit that out because that was funny.
We meant to do that.
That threw me off.
That's okay, because now it reminded me I got to put my phone in Do Not Disturb. I did it on my watch, and I forgot to do it on my phone.
And it's coming up on my iPad here, too. So, oh, gosh. Right. We'll leave this in. We don't have to edit this. This was funny.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Google News didn't have that similar feature, so it has its own unique offering in the form of a headline section that'll aggregate top stories. Google did have a dedicated newsstand tab that lets you subscribe to paid and free news sources for a range of magazines. But of course, Apple, with their acquisition of Texture, they're going to probably do the same thing very soon. So, but yeah, check out the Google News app. It's free. It might be something that appeals to you, and as far as that goes, give that a shot.
It's just another option for news, and we know how people love their news.
Yeah. So another thing that caught our eyes here is Apple dropped the price of the USB-C, the Lightning to USB-C cable from $25 to $19. That which is awesome because more and more people are getting newer MacBooks and Macs for that matter that have the USB-C. I'm going to go around and buy one. I hadn't bought one because I was like, I don't want to spend extra money on it. But now it's $19. That's pretty cheap, and which could really hint that Apple might be dropping the USB-A from Mac models soon. Especially like the Mac Pro or the Mac Mini. So this cable is going to be for USB-C, so you can charge it without having to have an adapter. And that's what I did. I just bought a bunch of cheap adapters to put on my USB-A cables because I have.
I did the other thing. I went and right away I started seeking out cables. So I have like a whole new bundle of cables that are all USB-C on the end. And I mean, it took a while. I won't lie. It was frustrating trying to find them all. And especially one like that where it's a high quality. I was just looking to see, go ahead and keep talking. I was looking to see if I could find it in my orders. And I could tell you the one that I got because I think I paid around the same price. So that is a good price. And especially for an Apple version one.
Yeah, so we've linked in the show notes. That was on Mac Observer, and check that out to see to grab on those cables, especially if you have a newer MacBook or MacBook Pro.
They're really handy to have, let me tell you.
Yep,
and you've got 4 ports on the newer MacBook Pros. There's 4 ports, so you can plug it into any port you want.
Yep. So, all right, another story. iPhone 7 Plus tops customer satisfaction survey. An iPhone 7 Plus, really? That's a couple models back there.
Yeah.
And the iPhone 10 didn't even get the best score on this survey from
or the 8 even.
Yeah, the ACSI survey, and this was from an article from Cult of Mac, and iPhone 10 is the world's best-selling smartphone, but it is an older model that scored the highest in the satisfaction index. So the iPhone 7 Plus beat out to all the newer iOS models and solidly outscored the iPhone 10. Naturally, it trounced all those Android devices. So this article does have a survey showing all the phones, and it gives you a breakdown of what the score was. So the iPhone 7 Plus was 85, a score of 85, and then you had the Galaxy S8 Plus, the S8. So they're not too far behind, 84, 83. So, I mean, they're pretty close. And I still find it hard to believe the iPhone 10 is all the way down to 80. But
I just don't think there's enough of them out there.
Yeah, well,
I think it's just a supply and demand thing. Give it time.
Yeah, I mean, 7 Plus has been out for a while. So, and that was a great phone.
Sure
I owned it.
Took them a long time to get to this.
I owned it at one point, so it was a great phone. I agree that it did that. So take a look at that survey because it does show that. Yeah, I take these surveys with a grain of salt a lot of times. It's usually what I do, but it's interesting to see what they say with these surveys. And obviously, there's a lot of happy customers out there that like the 7 Plus. So check that out. And last but certainly not least, your favorite app got updated, the Castro 3, and that's the podcast app that you've been raving about. and unfortunately, as we've had this debate, I still don't. I think it's a good app, but I wish it had video support, and it doesn't.
That's the only thing I think that it's lacking for you, though.
Right, it is. Honest. So it's a great app. So since you were beta testing it, and I figured I'll throw out that article. This article was out on MacStories.net. Give us your because you beta tested it. Go us and give us your review and thoughts of Castro 3.
So the article that you linked to is a really great review. I encourage people to read it. It's says pretty much whatever I'm going to say. I mean, it is. I mean, I've liked it a lot more than the person who wrote the article, Ryan Christoffel. It sounds like he used it and then he abandoned it for a little while and then he used it again and he liked it, but it was lacking. And for me, it just wasn't really lacking. I always thought it was really good. And so I just think it's that much better. I think it's better also because I think it's got a lot more of the features that people were wanting it to have compared to other podcast apps out there. Now, one of the big things that people are going to notice first is that there's now a subscription model. Right. And one of the things I like about, I'm all over the place on this because I really, really just love this app. One of the things that I really love about it is that the people who develop it eat their own dog food and they have their own podcast, Super Top Podcast. And if you are, inclined to be geeky and nerdy about this kind of stuff, you really should give it a listen. I mean, they're not really long podcasts, but you can hear the developers talk about what they're thinking and what they're feeling and how they're working on this app. And so you can kind of almost sort of see how the sausage is made a little bit. So I listen to them deliberate over what to charge, when to charge, how to go about that. And I know that they've been really nervous about it, as anybody is, because I will be the first person to tell you that I get frustrated with subscription models only because I have a family to support, and I don't have a lot of disposable income. It doesn't mean that I don't think it's a good idea or that developers have to eat too. So I think that any developer needs to do whatever they need to do, whatever they feel they need to charge. I'm just here to tell you that these guys did not take this lightly. They really deliberated and really thought about it and interviewed people and talked to people. And it's not like they just slapped a price on it. And it's not like they want to be greedy about it either. They're charging a really fair price for what you get. And what's really great about it too is you can try it before you buy it. I mean, not only is the app now free, so that's the best part. So for me, and that I work with senior citizens. So one of the things that drew me to this app to begin with was when I used to be all about, I'll just eat my own dog food. I'll just live in iOS and I'll just use as much as I possibly can. I used to be all about just using the stock apps. And I really, really, really deliberate when it comes to using a third-party app that Apple already has. I firmly believe that Apple does their best with what they can do, but I'm sure that they have developers that have priorities on other parts of the system. There's a lot of moving parts here. And, what you get an iPhone, you get iOS, you get a calendar, you get a contacts app, you get a podcast app, you get a browser, you get all the basic things that you need to have. And they're as good as they can be for what Apple wants to do with them. But then there's certain apps, like for me, like I'm a power calendar user. So I can't stand the standard calendar app. And for the longest time, I would hear people say that about the podcast app. Like, oh, I can't stand it. It's terrible and it's awful. And, like they talk about iTunes. And for the longest time, it's not that I didn't believe people, but I really I liked it. I didn't have a problem with it. You know what I mean? Like I didn't know what I was missing until I started using Castro. And until what really, really threw me over the edge was when, podcasts are not a huge requests that I get from seniors, but they're starting to get onto the radar. And so I had a couple of clients that asked me, what's a podcast? How do I listen to it? And how do I work this thing? And so it wasn't until I sat down with a senior with, really aging eyes and, hesitation shakes and all these issues that people deal with. I mean, even my eyes are terrible now. I need to wear bifocals. I was watching them interact with the podcast app and just my heart was breaking watching them miss the targets, and just like, well, here, all you got to do is just, tap on this thing and move this little slider and do this here. And it was just painful to watch people try to interact with the interface of the basic built-in podcast app. Now, it's great for young people. It's great for people who have really fantastic vision and really terrific, outstanding fine motor skills and pincher grasp and all that kind of stuff. It's great for them. But for people who struggle or for people who want more out of a podcast app, then you start looking at third parties. And so I started going on a quest, looking for other podcast apps. And my biggest criteria was it needed to have big targets. It needed to have big buttons that people could see. Yeah. And as I started to use, I asked around, and my friend Elsie, she said, try Castro. She was like really in love with it. And so, I was a little hesitated at first because there was the price, I think it was like $3 or $4 at the time. And I thought, oh, I hate the idea of paying for something and not knowing if I'm going to like it or not. Because, back before this happened, we didn't really have the model that we have today, which is now not only can you, as a developer, release your app for free and charge a subscription model, but now like what they've done with Castro is they also let you have a trial of the subscription model. And I just think that is fantastic because for me as a consultant to be able to tell a little granny or a little grandpa, hey, try this app. It's just not going to cost you anything. And here it's got big buttons. It's got a wonderful interface. You can enhance the voices. You can slow things down. You can speed things up. You can skip over things. And if you want more, then you can pay a little extra for, using a subscription for what the app, may have cost if you had bought, like a premium app over, a couple years time or whatever, and you're not locked into it. It's just a subscription. If you don't like it or you don't find value in the services that they're charging for, you can cancel it. It's not that big of a deal. So it's kind of like a low barrier to entry. It's a low commitment kind of thing. And that's what I really enjoy about it. And I really wanted to stress that it's now free. So if you're trying to get like a family member or somebody into podcasts and you're trying to teach them about it, go get Castro, have them install it. It's free. It's not going to cost them anything. And they can start out with the basics. And then, like, let's say people, say your family member really falls in love with podcasts and they start listening to podcasts that have chapters, then you can pay a little extra for, I don't know. We'll list like prices and stuff in the show notes. I don't want to just say them in case we'll let people read into it and stuff unless you have it handy. But there's different pricing tiers. There's like a plus tier and like a basic tier, and then there's the free. So if you want to skip chapters, say you get into like you just start listening to podcasts and the podcasts that you listen to don't have chapters, no big deal. Then you don't really need that feature. But let's say you really get into it and you have a bunch of different podcasts that you like to listen to, and maybe you listen to it with a higher speed. There's also a trim silence mode that keeps out a lot of, like, some people just have really long pauses. Like we were just joking about how we talk really fast. You might want to slow us down, or depending on, you might want to speed us up. Who knows? But there might be long silences. If there's, like, I know I was recording a podcast with friends not long ago, and there were like these long pauses, and there was a lot of editing that was going to need to take place because we were having technical issues with Skype. And so that happens sometimes. And so you might want to trim the silence. If you have hearing issues, in addition to vision issues, you can mix the stereo down into mono. You can set it, say there's a podcast you like to listen to, and they always have the same intro, and it's always like, so many seconds long. You can just have it skip the intros. I mean, there's all these different things that you can do. And then you can customize the heck out of it and do it on a podcast by podcast. And I don't mean like episode, but I mean like an actual podcast. Like we are a podcast. Like our other friends that do things, I do Geekiest Show Ever, that's a podcast. Each one of those podcasts, then you can customize based on that. Like there might be one where I just did this the other day. There was I listened to Clockwise, and I had the trim silences turned on. And that was like a terrible idea because they edit the heck out of that show. Like they trim it down. They do such a really great job with their editing already that trimming silences made it sound a little too choppy. So that's not something you want to have on globally for every single podcast. So there's just all these different features that are now added. And like I said, you can download it for free. You can start out. And then if you find value in those other services, then you can pay a little extra for it. And you can change your mind at any time, and you can always cancel your subscription. You can always subscribe later. And again, like what I really like is that you can try it. You can have a trial subscription as well.
Yeah, I'm on the site. It's the Castro Plus features, things like trim silence, enhanced voices, mono mix. I mean, there's a lot of things, something you may not even need to do, that the free version will probably be more than sufficient. Now, we were Castro 2 users, and they did let us upgrade for free.
Exactly. So that's, we definitely should mention that. If you had, like I did, I had bought in when it was Castro, and then they changed the name to Castro 2, and I bought in when it was Castro 2. And so me as a perk for, having bought that, I get to keep those features that other people that are just downloading it for free that had not purchased it in the past, they'll have to pay a little bit extra for that. So it's kind of like, it's nice too. They deliberated about this a lot. They reward you for being like a loyal, owner of Castro for a little, customer. So I thought that was a really great perk for that as well. The other thing I wanted to say too is, it wasn't just when I discovered that I liked this interface and that I really wanted to show this to my clientele. The other benefit then, almost by accident, was when I've been telling you guys about my case adventures, how I got this case that I really love, and I have a magnetic ring on the back, and I can stick this on my magnetic mount in my car. And because I have an old car, it's not a clunk or anything, but it's like 14 years old. It's a little Hyundai, and I don't have CarPlay. And I don't have a lot of these features, I don't have like built-in Bluetooth. So I have to kind of hack it to make it really nice. And the thing that I love about the Castro interface is not only does it have the big buttons for aging eyes, it's really terrific in the car. I have my phone mounted right there, and you can, switch it to dark and light mode. So, when you're driving in the evening and you don't want this blaring screen in your face, because, plus like the laws have changed and you're not supposed to be interacting with your phone while you're driving anyway. And of course, I don't advocate that, but having the nice big interface means that you can just, at a stoplight or whatever, you can poke at the screen and you're not going to miss this tiny little target. Like you don't have to like squint at it to get to where you need to go. So it's a wonderful interface for using it in the car, almost as if you had CarPlay, because CarPlay is in your dash. So this almost makes, like, especially if you got a big, nice slab of glass with the 8 Plus like I do, it's, just this wonderful, huge, nice interface, and it really makes it great for driving as well. So that's what I wanted to say about Castro. I mean, go read the article. It's really thorough. I think it's a really great review. It says a lot of what I was going to say. I just wanted to highlight that, they really deliberated over what to charge, and I think it's a fair price. And even though I don't really like to pay for subscriptions, I probably will find value. Just the other day, I was like, oh man, I do miss having like being able to skip chapters now. Like, that was a nice feature. And so, when I was beta testing, I got to check that out. And so I did like that feature. So that's something I would probably.
They should be giving you access for being a beta tester. Come on.
Oh, maybe they will. I don't know.
But I thought even when the people who have at Castro 2 upgraded to 3, but that doesn't matter.
So in Castro 3, the skip chapters, that's part of Plus.
So they won't give it to you if you had 2.
Right. So I get access to, like, I'm looking at mine now. I put the regular version back on. I get access to enhanced voices and continuous play and day and night, the black and the white screen. But for example, like trim silence is locked out, and then skipping chapters is a plus version.
Okay.
So there's, just those extra perks that you get. And again, I mean, I think they tried to keep the best of the best for free, and then to make it not profitable, but like, like I said, they're not trying to be greedy, but they got to pay their bills too, sure. and you want to pay developers, you want to pay those subscription prices, and you want to pay them what they're worth, because then they'll keep developing it. If everything was free, right. Or they didn't charge enough, then they'd go belly up, and then you'd lose out on a really great, thing that you invested a lot of your time, not just money, but time. It takes time to learn. I mean, not with Castro so much. It's not a huge learning curve. That's the other thing that I like about it, is because they have this very, like I said, read the article, and we've talked about it before. They have this really interesting triage approach, which basically uses functionality that you're already familiar with, like from basic email functions, like an inbox, or archiving, lists, queues, reordering, stuff like that. Things that you're already familiar with is how they approach it. It's very different than other podcasts. But, other people, like, I know you like video, and I've had other people show me Overcast and Downcast, and they really like being able to make these, intricate playlists, and they have this sort of like workflow, and that's great. That's fantastic. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just a different way of doing things. I just happen to like Castro because it kind of does it for you. Like it's very, I don't have time to tinker with as much as I would love to, because I am so type A. I might do it over the summer, but I do like to make playlists and stuff. I just haven't had time. I just haven't had time to really make playlists for podcasts. And so Castro has been the least barrier to entry to be able to just get up and here's a bunch of podcasts that I liked, or I had in the podcast app. I exported the XML. I imported it. It was great. Remember when I got my 8 Plus and I did a complete nuke and pave? Okay. I mean, I started from the ground up because that's my jam. That's what I do. I like to, I guess I'm just sadistic like that.
Glutton for punishment.
Yeah, it was. It was like personal punishment, because I knew what people go through, and I kind of have to experience that once in a while. And plus, I like a clean phone. I have my reasons for doing that. And because I pass these phones down to other family members, a nuke and pave is kind of necessary for that kind of stuff. So it's multiple reasons why I go and do that. But having Castro be able to just, when I exported that and I was able to import that, like, man, I did not lose any time. Yeah. I didn't have to rebuild that at all. It was just, I backed it up before I did my nuke and pave, and I re-imported it. And I haven't had to spend any more time than necessary fiddling with a podcast app. It's one of those things that just works,
Yeah.
I mean, occasionally I will say that there have been some crashes and they're working on that. So don't freak out if that does happen to you.
Yep.
As with any app, I mean, that happens to all apps, but it's a good solid release and they've really worked hard and it's got tons of new features. So if you are a Castro 2 user, I mean, don't hesitate. Just go ahead and update it.
Yeah, it's free.
And then you still get to keep your, the features that you've already paid for. And then you can do a 7-day free trial to see if you're going to like the features that they've added and see if you find value in that. And that's what I'm talking about when I say value, because some of that stuff, even though you're paying for it, you're saving time. If you're like a heavy duty podcast listener and you listen to podcasts that have chapter markers in them, I mean, that might be worth it for you. You might find a lot of value that it's worth the time that you'll be able to save because you can trim all the silences and you can skip through chapters and be able to get to the meat and potatoes of stuff and listen to what you want to listen to and then move on with life. So It might just be a value to you. So check it out.
All right. Yep. I knew you would give us a good, full, comprehensive review of Castro, so that's why I threw that in the news.
I'm glad you did. I got excited when I saw that show up on the news.
Yeah. So, all right, let's move on to some of the topics we're going to talk about. We have about 3 topics we're going to talk about, and one of them was my experience switching from AT&T. Well, I was an AT&T customer for probably about 12 years.
I can't believe you did it.
And I am now a T-Mobile customer. Now, as we're recording this podcast, I just got a message from my wife saying that I'm not going to say what she said, but it was her displeasure of T-Mobile because she's at a concert. But
did it involve a red emoji with like little symbols across the face?
I don't know, but just like any carrier, and let's face it, all carriers stink. I mean, they have their issues. I don't care who you go with. They have their issues, especially when you're at a big venue like that, when there's 20,000 people in a stadium, and cellular coverage can be hit or miss, depending. I mean, it's gotten a lot better over the years with big concert venues and sporting events and those things. Because I would go to a football game in Chicago. The Chicago Bears go to Soldier Field, and that's where they play on the lakefront. And oh my gosh, the cell coverage would be horrible, god awful horrible. They would have to bring. I
can't imagine it would be good with any carrier. I mean, isn't that just a huge Faraday cage, or
they would have
lots of bombardment? Yeah,
they would bring portable antennas out on trucks if they had to make it better. But it's gotten better because they've added more towers and more coverage, and the cellular services, of course, have improved over the years. So really, what my motivation was I just was tired of AT&T and just the what they offer. I have a family plan. We have 6 different phones on our plan with the various members of my wife's family, and I'd felt that this is a great deal because the cost is we're probably saving about $20 or $30 a month through. So
that's significant over the course of a year. Yeah, and
we're dividing that between 6 people. That's a pretty good clip. So they have the T-Mobile One plan, which is we went from 20 gigs of data, and AT&T had the carryover versus unlimited. So hello,
wow, nice, yeah.
I mean. Granted,
the coverage. When you looked at the map, did you drill down and look at it? I mean, it's all pink.
Yeah, it was all pink, or we should say magenta. And it looked we had really good coverage. I mean, even when there's 2 or 3 bars, the phone would be fine, the data would be fine, the speeds were good, 30 megabit speeds in most cases, and I just thought it was a great deal. I mean, and we got to keep our phones, other than 2 phones had to be replaced only because they were old. But all the phones we had just carried right over, just put the SIM cards in, and away we went. They had some more perks. They have perks like they're giving free Netflix. So I'm getting my Netflix is paid for now. So that's one perk. They have a T-Mobile Tuesday where they have all kinds of free giveaways they do every week. I think last week I ended up getting a coupon for to see, what's the name of the movie?
You got movie tickets?
Yeah, Deadpool. I was not having a brain cramp.
Oh, Deadpool 2?
Deadpool 2. And so it was a $4 ticket. So I got to go. So I mean, things like that. I mean, and another perk which is nice is you can get unlimited text when you're flying on American Airlines or any airline that uses
nice.
GoGo in-flight, and plus 1 hour of free internet. So when you're on
Now, I'll
on a
tell you,
plane,
I did look into this. I was very, very tempted to jump ship because, like you, I've been an AT&T customer for a long, long time. I
Right.
mean, I did switch to Sprint for a couple of years.
I was at Sprint a
But
long time
now
ago.
my big question for you, and I know probably the answer is yes, but on T-Mobile, there's no more exclusivity with AT&T, so you can be talking on a phone call and surfing the internet.
Oh yeah, that's no
you can
different.
still do that. Okay,
T-Mobile's
that was the thing that kept me with AT&T. That was the thing that got me to AT&T in the first place, because they didn't have the iPhone at Sprint, and I wanted the iPhone, and AT&T had exclusivity at the time. And then I remained on AT&T because of the type of work that I do. I frequently, I mean, this is a deal breaker for me. People call me and ask me a question, and I put them on speakerphone, and I have to like look things up, in Safari or whatever. And you could not do that on anybody but AT&T. And so now you're saying that is available on T-Mobile for sure.
It's never been a problem because T-Mobile is GSM, so is AT&T. GSM is the global standard mobile service that's across the world. So it's never been a problem with AT&T. It's never been a problem with T-Mobile. It's always
it wasn't a problem with AT&T because
T-Mobile. T-Mobile never was a
exclusivity contract with Apple specifically, and I didn't think T-Mobile was privy to that.
Oh, yeah, that's a long time ago.
Long time. Okay.
Sprint and Verizon are still using the CDMA technology, but they do also have SIM, and that issue of surfing and talking is not an issue on Sprint or Verizon nowadays. Now with the advent of Sprint, but more potentially merging with T-Mobile, I mean it's going to be that's old news. Sorry.
So for a while there, I was considering going to T-Mobile because I thought that was the case, and I thought I had researched that, but I wanted to ask again just to be sure.
Sure.
But I was so tempted to go to T-Mobile, but the only thing that kept me, now I did do I sliced and diced the price. I made all kinds of comparisons. The issue is that we have a corporate discount because it's a perk. It's something that they offer education staff here in this state. So it's a statewide thing. It's not, countrywide.
Yeah, I don't think they offer
so we
that.
have, a rather deep discount for that. So that's what keeps us, and the coverage. I just couldn't they're just in this area, and that may change. And if it does,
possible.
I won't have any reservations, and that would be great, but the future's not here yet. So for right now, the coverage is still just not good for T-Mobile. It's maybe as good or comparable to AT&T, but it's not certainly any better. And so I can't justify switching because A, we pay less, B, the coverage isn't any better, and in some cases it's worse. So I'm stuck with AT&T for now. So I will, and I like the customer service. So I don't have a lot of complaints about AT&T, except I wish that all of them, just like you said, with the problem that your wife just had, I just wish they had better coverage overall. And that's like kind of an issue. Like Verizon has really good coverage. Like they have better coverage, but they're a lot more expensive and terrible customer service in my experience. So just my personal opinion.
Yeah, for now we're good. We're good. We don't have.
Good. I'm glad you're enjoying it. It sounds like there's lots of really great perks. Though.
Well, the perks are nice too.
Come to Tucson, T-Mobile. You both start with T. I can rock the magenta. Just come on.
I got to get some more cell towers out there.
Yes,
but
it's the desert, for crying out loud. What is the problem?
The coverage and the cost of installing them.
Yeah, I guess.
It's been fine, and we're not locked to a contract. So if we decide to walk away, no problem. We can go back.
And you're all unlocked anyway, right?
Yeah, every phone we own is unlocked. So
that's great.
Yeah, so there won't be any
kind of like a no risk kind of way to go about it.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, last thing I want to talk about before we kick into your the dive onto contacts is there was a great article on Mac Observer. Our friend Jeff Gamet wrote it. It's a nice, quick 1-minute read. How to see where Apple tracks you on your iPhone and iPad. Now, if you go through here, it has all the steps, all the screenshots, and all that. So, really, what you have to do is you have to go into System Services, and then there is a section in there. If you go through it, Settings, Privacy. I'm gonna go fast because you can go to the article and take a look at this. Location Services, System Services, and then there's another selection called Significant Locations. Now you can go through and it has, you can turn that on and off, and because then now, and not just anybody around wherever you are is going to be able to see where you are and what you're doing. It's interesting. It picks up a lot of different cities, and he has, of course, examples as he lives in Boulder, Colorado, so he has the Colorado area. and his list was interesting. So take a look at that article and go through that. I think it's an important thing to take a look at. And if you're not comfortable with that, clear the history, clear the privacy, and do that. I don't know. Were you aware of that, Melissa?
That it tracks your history. I mean, I knew that you could turn things on like to improve maps, so the Apple Maps would get better.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I live in an area where Apple Maps isn't that big a deal, so I do use it because I like to use Hey Phone Lady to get me around. But I'd rather just use Google Maps for a lot of when I'm going to an unknown area, because I travel a lot to go see clients and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I knew there were those things in there. I like it to track me because I do use Find My Friends. I mean, a lot of people find that very stalky, although I use the word creepy, and it's like, it's not creepy. It's helpful. You give permission. It asks you your permission. So I like location stuff. A lot of my clients get really wigged out about that, and it's understandable. They get really creeped out by things that pop up and say, this one should use your location. Well, yeah, it's the weather. It kind of needs to, unless you want to get the weather for some other place. You got to give it your location access.
And if you go under the significant locations, and I remembered I turned this off, it says on here, allow your iPhone to learn places significant to you in order to provide useful location-related information in maps, calendar, photos, and more. Significant locations are encrypted and cannot be read by Apple. So
that's the one that I was kind of talking about that I had turned off, because remember, I was always having issues with batteries, my older phones, because of the heat here. So I'm always looking for places to trim down battery usage. And so that was one of those areas that I turned off, because I just personally didn't find it that helpful for that kind of stuff. And, ads, I just didn't care about location-based advertising. Right. So I had that one turned off. But as far as being able to find people, and find my friends, I definitely want to make sure that it was using those kinds of locations. So, I mean, significant locations, I mean, what all really is significant locations? Right. Is it for the purposes of advertising, or is it for the purposes of being able to tell you places that you've been? I mean, this might be helpful for someone who has an elderly family member, and they're trying to track their location that way. I mean, for silver alerts and things like that, that could be possibly helpful. But if it's not accessible, through law enforcement, something like that, maybe it's not. So
anyway,
I don't know.
Take a look at that article, and it's got great information. We wanted to bring it to your attention because it's a feature.
Yeah. I would be interested in hearing what our listeners say. This would be a good opportunity to ask them to give us feedback. At intouchwithios.com. Email us and tell us what you think. Do you think it's helpful? Do you think it's harmful? Do you think it's stalky? I mean, do you think it could improve your life in any possible way, or do you think it's just a nuisance and a battery hog and you just turn it off? Yep. So tell us what you think.
All right, so let's move on and let's dig into your second part of your discussion that we had last time on getting more out of the Contacts app. It's interesting you bring this up, because my presentation at MacStock is going to be on productivity. Workflows is probably the key word, or not necessarily the key word, but just workflows between Apple Watch, iPhone, iPad, and Contacts is one of the pieces that I want to discuss. So this would be good review for our listeners, as well as if you come to MacStock, hint, a lot of this is going to. I mean, I only have 20 minutes, so it's not going to be a lot, but it's going to.
Yeah, it's a big thing.
That's a big topic here. So I mean, I know you'll do it well, and just give us some great info about how to get more out of the Contacts app. So.
Yeah, so last episode, if you recall, and if you haven't, please go back and listen to that, because the last episode, we kind of give you like an introduction to this. And again, as I said last time, we probably won't get through all of it, and I just have some kind of bullets and things that I just want to go over, because it's such a big thing. I mean, the thing that you're holding in your hand is a phone. You use it to call people and text people. I mean, it is a communication device. So it kind of has to have an address book or contacts, app of some sort. And lucky for us, Apple actually has an app called Contacts. It's actually called the thing that it does. it's just such a novel concept, right? So I want to dig into it. I always want to keep coming back to this, and we may, feature this in future episodes too. We might just do little segments on it. But so last episode, like I said, was kind of a preview or, getting into it. Now I kind of want to dig down a little bit deeper into it and start out by going into the settings again. So we did talk about this a little bit, so I might be repeating myself a little bit, but you definitely want to start out in settings, and then you want to go into the contacts section of the settings and make sure that you are thoroughly familiar with what's in those contact settings. So if you go to settings and then scroll right down and tap on contacts. Now we're talking about iOS 11. So if you're on an older operating system and it's not there where it should be, but it should be, so check your operating system. Make sure that you're on the latest. The first thing that you're going to see is Siri and Search. Now, a lot of people I know can find Siri very irritating. It's always a bone of contention, is it not? But I'm going to recommend I'm going to recommend that even if you're not going to use it for actually talking to Siri or saying the key phrase to invoke it, that you definitely still keep it enabled for Siri and Search suggestions, and also find contacts in other apps. Only because, you don't have to struggle with Siri. You don't have to be using your voice to do this. This is the thing where when you're on the home screen, and what I mean by home screen, you see all of your app icons. When you place your finger in the center of your home screen and you pull straight down, you're going to get what we call the spotlight search. And that's where you can start typing in a name of a person that's in your contacts. And that's what, when you keep Siri turned on and Siri Search, that's what you'll be able to find. So, I evidently know a lot of Daves. So if I type in Dave, I'm going to see all of the Daves that are in my contacts list there.
Well, and I agree with you. Spotlight is awesome because when you just pull it down and start searching for stuff, it brings up everything, not necessarily all just contacts, but contacts are there too. So it's one place to search for everything. So that's great.
But so you don't want to turn off Siri, because if you turn off Siri completely, then you lose access to this feature, and you don't have to use your voice to do it. Like, you just pull down and you start typing, and that's how you can get quickly to people that are in your contacts list.
Yeah, and you can type in Siri. So you can type in, you can type something in Siri. You don't have to actually say something. So
the next biggest thing that I have to just stress, because this is just a problem. I'm a field technician, so I deal with this stuff on a regular basis. And this is one of the things that I see that I know it just irritates everybody. And it's the sort and display order, especially when you have multiple devices, because what ends up happening is your fingers and your eyes develop a certain muscle memory. And if you don't make this consistent across your devices, you will drive yourself insane. You will just make yourself have a really terrible experience. So trust me when I say go to all your devices that have contacts and go into the settings and do this very first. If you haven't done the Siri Search part, go and set the sort order to be whatever it is that you prefer it be, whether it's first, last, or last, first. You're given those two choices, and make sure that it's the same on all your devices. Go pause the podcast and go do that right now. It's that important. And then the display order, make sure that that's the same. And I don't mean the same as each other, because you get sort order. That's one setting. That's one preference that you can set, whether you want to see a first name and then a last name, like say, for example, Davis Melissa versus Melissa Davis. Some people, I think it could be a generational thing. It could just be a business thing. I know a lot of people were just trained that when you're inputting data into fields, that you start with the last name and then you enter the first name and then a middle initial, whatever. But on newer technologies, it doesn't have to be that way. This is not old school, analog paper. This is digital. You can have whatever field and whatever order you want, but just make it consistent. So for the sort order, set that to be the same, whether it's, I have mine personally, I have it first, last, because that's the way that I like to see my names showing up in my list. If I'm looking up my contact information for Dave Ginsburg, I want to see Dave's name first and his last name second. I don't want to see it backwards, but you may have the opposite inclination. And then the display order, that's important. I have both of those set to be the same because that's exactly how I want to see it. I want to see the first name first and the last name second in the next field order. Now, this is really important because as you're going through your contacts, each one of the cards, there is a field. I mean, there's a construction to each one of these cards, and there is a field for each part. And if you are, say, coming from an old flip phone or, some other operating system, this may be all wonky and switched around for you. So you really got to pay attention to how you're filling out those fields. When you look at the field as you're entering information, please make sure that you read what it says. If it says last, you really have to put the last name there. I'm not kidding. If you put the first name there, then this feature, this section here that I'm talking about is going to be all backwards for you, and it's going to make you tear your hair out. So really pay attention to these settings and then what the fields look like when you're entering information. And hopefully it's not too terrible, but this will be something to pay attention to so that you know how to troubleshoot. If you're trying to find somebody and they're not showing up where you expect them to be, then check the order that they're listed. Check the order of the fields for each contact and make sure that it's populated properly. Now, the next section here is called short name. And when you tap on it, then you see a toggle switch, and that's if you even want to use short names. There are a lot of people that like to use nicknames. I'm one of those people. You can totally turn this off and totally ignore everything that has to do with short names if this is not something that you'll use. But for me, for instance, I just like to see a short name. I want to save, processing time on my eyes. I just want to see it. Or like because I'm a mom and my kids are making friends, like I might not know the kiddo's parents' name, but they may have given me their phone number or their email, or we met in passing, and so I'll write like Amanda's mom or Johnny's mom or something like that. I don't know what her name is, but I know whose kid she belongs to. So that's helpful for people like me. I have to say, Dave, this is going to be really important for people going to MacStock, because when you go to MacStock, you're going to make some friends.
Exactly.
And you're going to want to know how to use the Contacts app to be able to enter this information. And you might meet somebody like maybe that Dave has a podcast called In Touch with iOS. So maybe you want to put In Touch with iOS Dave, but you don't remember his last name for some reason. This is a place where you can add a nickname. And then, of course, you get all of these different granularity choices like first name and last initial. I'm not going to go through each and every one. But then there's a switch for preferred nicknames. So what's great about that is if you do use this feature and say you're having a texting conversation, the nickname will come up, and, maybe you have nicknames that are terms of endearment for, special family members. So maybe you don't want to see their full name, or say you have a crazy family like mine where they're all Scotts, Michaels, and Anthonys, but they all go by Tony, Scotty, and Mickey, and Mikey. And, so you might want to use nicknames for something like that. So, who the heck you're talking to.
Yep.
So that's really important. So don't just, turn that off, and, really think about where that could come in handy. And then another place, this sounds so simple, but I see so many people overlook this, the section that says My Info. Make sure that it's actually your info. Make sure that it's actually a card that belongs to you that has your information on it, because it's going to involve, it's going to affect things like Siri, or it's going to affect other things that involve how the phone addresses you personally. So make sure that that's set. And then the last section here says default account. Now, in the last episode, I remember I did talk about how I sort of have this, his, hers. I think you have it too, Dave. Yep. We have our his and our hers and our shared accounts. So this is where that's going to be important. If you are a couple or in a family or partnered with somebody or in a business or something where you have multiple accounts that contacts and address books, live. And so, for example, in my phone, my personal iCloud is my default account. So whenever I make a new contact card, I can make sure that it will be saved there and not in the shared iCloud account. Now, Dave, I want to ask you about this next part. It says import SIM contacts. Now, I have never had to use that because I think I only ever had one dumb phone before this, and it wasn't one of those things where I could just pop out the SIM out of that one and pop it into a new phone, a smartphone. Yeah. So I've never really had any need for this. Have you ever used import SIM contacts?
Long time ago. I don't think a contact.
Is it like a holdover?
I don't think contacts are stored on SIM cards anymore. I mean, I think that's like we talked about earlier with the CD, being able to surf the net and talk on the phone. It went by that way. It's something that used to be done years ago because they would have because a lot of these phones didn't have anything to store on it at all. But not with the advent of a smartphone and iPhone, you couldn't really need to have to do that anymore. So, but if you did do it, it does have you can export them. And it's easy to go through that with the contacts, but it's not used.
So, I mean, it's so important to use iCloud, and even if you are going to import some contacts, it's just so important that you synchronize your contacts. Because I still know a few people that I'll get that text like every other year or so, like, oh, I lost my phone, or my phone died, or something happened to it, or I had to get a new number. Can you, I happened to I wrote your number down. Can you give me your email address and your address and like all this stuff? And then they have to manually enter it all over again. And my heart just breaks for people like that. Just use iCloud, please. Just use something.
I just had somebody that told me a story the other day that their daughter keeps playing with their phone, and you know how it is. Those young kids they grab it. They know when they grab it, and they'll start playing it, and then it erases it. Well, this person refuses to use iCloud. He does everything backing it up through iTunes. Like that too. Yeah, he backs it up on iTunes. Well, if you don't back it up soon enough, what happened? Guess what happened? You lost your photos for the holiday.
Right. Yeah, it's one thing. I do know people. I'm not going to rag on them too much. I know people who don't trust the cloud, and that's fine. But then pick your battles, because if you haven't backed up in even a week, even a day, you went to a conference like MacStock and you entered even 5 people in there, and you didn't do a backup, then and something happens to your phone, it takes a swim in the river, then that stuff's gone. And that's time. It might not seem like a big deal at the time, but that's lost an investment of time and energy that you had there entering all that data. And it takes time. It takes a lot of time to fill out all the fields and make sure that everything is populated. So real quick here on exporting and importing, like we always do, iMazing. I want to mention that again. Yep. It's just a handy app to have on your Mac. They gave me a license a long time ago, so full disclosure there, and I'm not making it up just because they gave me a license. It is a really fantastic, amazing app.
I trumped that.
You really should check it out.
I bought it. So.
Yeah, good. Okay, good. So this has saved my bacon a lot of times. It saved family members from having to lose information when they were switching phones. You can go into your carrier store and they might offer to do some of this stuff, but it just doesn't replace, the personal touch that is, sitting down with somebody like me or somebody like Dave and, helping you get the stuff that you really want to have on your phone. And iMazing is a really good tool for being able to export and import stuff, especially contacts and, text messages and things that you don't want to lose. Now, the last part that I want to talk about today really quick is just a little PSA. And this is in addition to it's not really necessarily contact specific, but it's just something that I want to bring up because I've been experiencing it a lot. A lot of seniors now are getting hearing aids that are Bluetooth compatible. And this sounds like such a great thing, doesn't it? I mean, isn't it fantastic thinking about, losing your hearing and then being able to hook up your hearing aid to your iPhone and be able to hear again? Isn't that just a wonderful thing? And they're really fancy. I mean, there are some really expensive hearing aids out there, and they can turn your iPhone into an amplifier so that you can actually use the microphone on it and be able to hear people. But don't take this lightly. Don't just say, hey, grandma, hey, grandpa, or your close family member. You should just totally get a Bluetooth hearing aid. It'll be awesome. It'll be great. Really take some time to look into this because it may not be all it's cracked up to be. What I've been experiencing with my clients is they go and they get these Bluetooth earpieces, hearing aids, and they might be double, it might just be one, and the salesperson sells them on it and tells them this wonderful, great story, and they just, without really asking a lot of questions, because, marketing is a wonderful thing. They go and it gets set up on their phones, or, maybe the salesperson, takes the phone out of their hand, or the person says, here, just do it. And they go and they boop, 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 and they beep, 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 and they just tap a bunch of things and they set it up. And before you know it, oh, yeah, I can hear. Well, guess what happens? One of the biggest issues that they've been telling me is when the hearing aids are hooked up to the phone in such a way that when the phone rings, guess where it rings? In their ear holes. And it drives them nuts. So it also drives their loved ones nuts, because the phone is ringing. The other person can't hear it because it's in the ear holes of the person that the hearing aids are paired to. And because they maybe set their phone down, the phone's ringing in their ears. So they can't really, even if they're, maybe they just have mild hearing loss, they can't hear for where the phone is. So they don't know where it is to go pick it up. And, and it's driving them bonkers because it's in their ears and they can't make it stop because they don't maybe have the phone in their pocket right away. So it's just something to consider. Really, really, investigate it. Do some testing before you just switch all the switches and turn on all the things, because it can really cause more problems than it solves. So that's my PSA on Bluetooth hearing aids and iPhones. They can be a wonderful thing. They really can be. But please do your research and test it out before you just set somebody loose and have it ringing in their ear holes. So be compassionate about that.
All right.
Okay. With the last remaining little bit of time that we have, you want to talk about our apps and gears down there?
Yeah, we could be quick about it, and then I got to talk about MacStock here.
Yep.
I was going to talk about last time I didn't. I think both of our apps are relating to monitors of with webcams.
I'll mention mine real quick, but I'll go deeper into it next episode because that'll relate to that other thing I was telling you about. Yeah. So go ahead and tell us about Wise. Is it WiseCam?
It's WiseCam. Yep. And $20 you buy these 1080p full HD cameras. It's got motion tagging, night vision. It's a pretty amazing little device. And I've already bought 3 of them. I haven't hooked the other ones up yet, but I have one sitting on in the back in the back window of my watching my backyard, and very clear. Only bad thing is like it does reflect the camera lens off the window at night. So I'm gonna have to come up with a different concept and maybe put it outside. And the other drawback to it too is it does have to be plugged in. It needs power. So there are some drawbacks to it, but it's a really neat it's a really neat device, and I can't believe the quality of the video as well as it has audio. You can listen. So if you wanted the camera inside your house and you're monitoring something inside the house, you could definitely do that, and it records. It has a micro SD card slot where you could actually store the videos. So pretty slick, and it's got a lot of great reviews. Check it out, and we got the link in the show notes. And you wanted to talk about many things.
Yeah, we mentioned this a while ago. You turned me on to this, and I just finally started investigating it because, as I mentioned in times past, we have a little puppy, and sometimes we have to leave her for a couple of hours. As much to my chagrin, I hate doing that, and she's so spoiled. Oh my goodness, is she so spoiled?
She's cute.
And now she's even more spoiled because. So, like I said, I'm going to go deeper into this in future episodes, but suffice it to say that I did managed to wrangle one of the old iPhones, and I found an old tripod. It was missing a leg, not a leg. It was missing a little foot on one of the feet, and I couldn't throw it out because it was still in really good condition. And I was able to repurpose it, and it makes me happy because I hate throwing stuff away. And I repurposed an older iPhone for this, and I hooked up many things. We're just using the free version. I'm tempted to pay for it with all the stuff that it could do, and I'll tell you more about that next time. So you'll have to stay tuned in. But for homework, go check out Manything. It's manything.com. We'll have a link in the show notes, and go see what this can do. And then when I talk about it on the next episode, you'll be able to laugh along.
Just so you will laugh. So with that, I wanted to wrap things up and talk about MacStock 2018. I will be speaking there again, as I've talked about, along with many other great speakers, including Dr. Mac. Bob LeVice is the keynote speaker. Chuck Joyner, Allison Sheridan, Wally Cherinsky, the videographer, Adam Christensen, Kelly Gumont, Gene McDonald, Chuck Joyner. I was just on Chuck Joyner's show, and give him a shout out. Appreciate being on his show on Mac Voices, because he does the Road to MacStock every week, and I want to make sure everybody, when that gets out, by the time this episode gets released, it should be released, I think, next week, the video. So make sure you check that out. Guy Searle, Tim Robertson. There were just endless amounts of great speakers. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's on July 21st and 22nd, 2 full days, and plus we have a dinner in between. We have a pre and a post MacStock plan as well, to people to get together. The greatest thing in the world is to be able to network with people and be able to meet people. And I got to meet you. I got to meet Mike Potter, and it was on a whim 4 years ago when I met Mike first time. Just reached out to him and saw his site, and I said, my father-in-law's lake house is up where near the Sessions is in Woodstock. So I went to had lunch with him, and we hit it off. And first thing he says to me at lunch is, "Hey, you want to speak at MacStock?" And I'm like, "Okay." And there was only 8 weeks left before the Sessions, and so that was the first year in 2015.
The rest is history.
And I got hooked, and that's how I got hooked on podcasting too. Thanks to Chuck Joyner and all the folks that were part of it too. So you could do that too, as far as being able to network with all these great people. And what the great thing about MacStock is, it's a very cozy conference. It's not like Macworld where there was tens of thousands of people, and you'd be lucky if you saw 10 people at any given time. Whereas here, it's a nice cozy group. You'll pretty much be able to meet everybody and be able to network, learn things. There's going to be 2 types of sessions. There's going to be the 20-minute presentation, then we'll have the breakout sessions, the deeper dives. So it's a great thing. So with that, go to macstock2018.com. Go onto the registration page, register. We have a offer code, and the offer code actually is for speakers and for us for podcasts. So if you use the offer code INTOUCH at checkout, you will save $70 off of the 2-day ticket. 2-day ticket's usually $219. It'll bring it down to $179. That's a bargain if you think about it.
And they feed you.
They feed you for lunch both days, and plus we'll have hors d'oeuvres and a dinner between Saturday night.
And last year they were really good about food allergies, and they had gluten-free options and things like that. So.
Absolutely. So please come out.
That code is INTOUCH, and it's not case sensitive, or it is case sensitive.
Even though it says it is shows
even easier.
Yeah, you just type in INTOUCH, but if you want to type it all caps, we just did that to emphasize in Dutch. So please come out and see me and then see all these other great speakers, because you're going to learn a lot, and a lot of focus on Apple, a lot of focus on technology, and like I said, it's a great time. We'd love to have you come out, and I would just hope that you wanted to come out and see us. So.
Yeah, maybe I'll show up virtually and we can have a chat that way too.
We'll thinking about maybe I do a podcast live from MacStock, but you'll be live on Skype. Yep. But yeah, that's sad you can't make it, but that's okay. It happens.
Not this year.
But
I still encourage people to go, because it's really fantastic, and I only wish that I could be there. So you'll have to go and give us some feedback and tell us all about it.
Exactly. So let's wrap this up. Oh, okay. So thanks for you for listening, and we hope that you're more in touch with iOS after hearing this episode. Subscribe to our podcast in your favorite podcatcher, and show your friends how to find us on Apple Podcasts, on the Google Play Store, and on Stitcher Radio. We also look forward to bringing you more useful information in future episodes. I'm Dave Ginsburg, and you can find me at DaveG65 on Twitter,
And I'm Melissa Davis, and you can find me online all over at the Mac Mommy.
We hope you'll subscribe for future episodes, and thanks for listening.